We go into private right away anyway.
Oh, well then take it out.
Well, we can start it and then go back.
Hello, Sarah? Hello, Sarah? Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Sarah? Hello, Sarah? I see you now, but I can't hear you.
So I wasn't sure if you were going to be home. I wasn't sure if you were having another adventure.
Oh no, we're back. We got back on
Sarah, can you hear us?
Friday night, I think.
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, good.
And we're gonna leave it there.
It actually wasn't, like, it was okay. It wasn't super much.
Touch too much over
It
there.
was kind of.
Touch too much over
Nice.
there.
Do you?
Yeah. Shut down for.
Oh, I don't remember. What was the name? Did I know? Something.
Because okay, I'm looking at, I just pulled up our motions. And on April 6th, I think it was 2021, bus not available until 2022. The proposed purchase of that 12-seater bus from Thorncloud.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. It just was a random pop-up on my screen, so.
It's never happened and we've never committed to it, so.
Yeah, okay. Alrighty. Is that one to be forwarded to community sustainability? Wasn't that something that was just still kind of sitting there with nowhere to go
Yeah,
for closure, one way or the other?
still in the so-called motion register thing there, or whatever. we haven't
Yeah,
Officially killed it, I guess.
yeah, so something's gotta come out of it, yeah.
Jesse's here today, right?
I
I haven't heard otherwise.
I have to apologize about next week though, our MSDA. I finally got an appointment at a wound care clinic. And so
What?
a wound care clinic.
Oh, okay.
I have that injury on my shin. I just completed 3 courses of antibiotics and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh, yeah,
And I
good.
don't actually know what kind of infection it is. Like I don't have that EPS or anything, so. So they had me a month out to be able to go to this clinic and I'm like, I can't do it. So they switched me in next Tuesday morning. The 19th, and I know that you said, please prepare for MSDA, right?
Yes. I don't know if it's as much as, I think the bigger one will be the August one.
Yeah.
So that first, right after the long weekend, second.
Knowing full well that I was ditching you, I grabbed that appointment anyways. At some point, maybe you just get scared when your leg just smells really poorly. What's that? You do, right? You do. And I don't know if it's my leg or anything, but it's feel very good. So,
Points I looked after, I don't think it's. He's gotten the application in for the campus store.
oh,
Or
okay.
becoming in August, so
Okay,
I think there's so much on the
and
next.
you've been contentious. That was kind of my primary concern, because anytime you have something contentious, you kind of have to make sure you've got proof of it here.
Yeah.
Just because moving it forward, and I don't think it's quite as contentious as we anticipated when it was 2 people that showed up. But you still have to be cautious.
Give me a minute to get settled.
And you know what, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to take a picture of my mouse, the bottom end of my mouse, to share with you. I just can't.
Well, when you get a chance, that's what he said he needed, so. Say what you need.
I'm probably just gonna go to the store and buy myself one. They're about $20. And we would pay far more to a consultant to go find a matching one. matching piece for the most, I think.
I think they're all pretty much the same, if it's just the whole thing. Like literal, like
They're not.
the Logitech ones.
No, because I have two for work, right?
Oh.
And I tried each one, I'm trying configuring them and I'm not. And then I went in and bothered to got other people from work to see if I can configure something.
Okay.
Because when they were away, I was gonna just go ahead and sneak in there and remove them.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:01. And can I get somebody to make a motion to adopt the minutes for the 13th regular meeting? Sure, go ahead.
I move that the adoption of the minutes of the 13th regular meeting held June 21st, 2022.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, and then someone would like to make a motion to adopt the agenda. And we do, it looks like, have a couple of amendments here. Somebody like to make this motion?
Okay. I move for the adoption of the agenda as circulated with the following amendments. So add 4A, Town Planner Diane Horvath, Lethbridge County Development Permit number 2022-092 for a closed meeting, section 21, with WIC. And then also add 9F, Alberta Food Residue Distribution, for food distribution event.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Could I add one thing to that motion, maybe, Spray Park operating hours?
To add that
As an item.
As an item? Sure. We can add that, how about as 9G? Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna move into delegations, and we're going to move into a closed session. So I'll make a motion that the council close the meeting to the public for agenda item 4A, Town Planner Horvath, regarding the Lethbridge County Development Permit number 2022-092 as per section 21 of the FOIA Act at 7:03 p.m. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. All right, so we will continue on. Down to business arising, so this is Lethbridge County regarding the development permit. And we do have a motion here. Would anybody like to make this motion?
I'll make that motion.
Sure.
I think though that, I liked your language a little bit better, if I could please, related to appealing it to the appropriate board.
How would you like to change it?
Rather than the Lethbridge County Development Appeal Board, right? So, that the Council of Town of Colder is hereby authorized administration to file an appeal with the appropriate appeal board. You think that language would be sufficient? Regarding the approval of development permit number 2022-092.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Great, thank you. All right, so now we're going to move on to bylaws and reports. So starting with the committee meeting minutes.
I apologize. I don't think it needs to be a part of the minutes, but I think that the appeal would be based on both our initial concerns and some of the conversation that we had today as well.
Because I think that would probably suffice, because I think from administration, we have figured out what would be appropriate to use
To
as.
bring in all the
To
players.
bring in, and then,
Yeah, thank you.
as we go in, we can always, again, have a conversation with council with regards to materials. If we do get materials or the exhibit package, et cetera, to find out, to make sure that we're representing the municipality correctly.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna quickly jump up and leave if you don't need me anymore, or do you?
We always do.
Thank you very much. Great, thanks. See you next time. See you.
Okay, so we're gonna now go through the committee minutes. And I'm just gonna go through and ask if there's questions, rather than go through all of them, unless there's something that needs to be discussed. So MSDA, does anyone have any questions on the minutes or comments? If there is none, I'm gonna move on to committee of the whole. We do have, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of speak to that. I know that there's a recommendation that was brought forward from that. I'd like to speak to that a little bit briefly before that. So we kind of discussed this a little bit briefly at the Policy and Bylaw Review Committee yesterday. One of the things that came up is the community grant program. So that's the one where different community groups can put in a request for funding for different events within the community. One of the thoughts was, instead of drafting a full policy for that, for the provision of third-party insurance, what we were looking at doing is possibly amending the community grant program and then including the option of insurance on there, so that is something that might be coverable through that. And then we're also looking at having that form that's submitted go to Rec and Culture versus the Community Enhancement and Sustainability Committee. And then that way it can kind of be in alignment with what the town's looking to do for programming and everything there. And another thing that we added on the end was just with that grant programming, there's no accountability or follow-up. So if we could get administration to possibly draft something that would have those changes, just to show kind of accountability via receipts or something, just to make sure that the money's being used for what people are requesting. And then just add that line of having the insurance covered under the community grant program, and then having that redirected to Rec and Culture versus community enhancement and sustainability. And then we don't have to draft a new policy, we can kind of keep it a little bit cleaner that way.
That is such a good idea. So you're saying different community groups can come forward and put in a request to have their insurance covered for different activities within that? That's such a great solution.
Because one of the things that did come up yesterday is the funding for that is, I believe it's from $6,000 to $8,000 a year. So then depending on how they have to do that. Another thing that kind of was mentioned briefly at that time was currently there's 2 times a year where you can apply for it. You have to apply well in advance. We're possibly looking at maybe making an amendment to that to say just kind of like applications as required and not really having that deadline. So if somebody has something coming up in say a month, and they're looking for that funding, then it would still be available, but then I guess Rec and Culture would be kind of responsible for ensuring that that cap is not exceeded within the budget year.
So just for clarification then, rather than to draft a policy, we're revising the policy. What was that policy called? The,
Community grant program.
okay, to include the third-party insurance and then make some other amendments. Is that correct?
Current maximum is 1,500, so that's increased, right?
Okay, so Councillor.
Yeah, so then as Ackerman's mentioned, then the applications would all go through Rec and Culture. So let's say there's like a huge influx and, you know, there's an budget amount set. You know, then Rec and Culture can make a decision about like who might get it if there's, you know, whatever. Or, you know, if we're looking at budget timing, saying like, hey, you know, we need to put more in this budget line or less in this budget line or whatever. So
I think that makes good sense. So this would have been the recommendation that came out of our committee of the whole. And Council Poetry, that was made on, like you had made that. Are you okay with this?
Would this be considered a friendly amendment then?
Well, no motion's been made.
No.
You just have recommendations.
This is the recommendation.
Oh, that's right, you're right. Thank you for that correction.
So we can adjust it as much as we want.
Yeah, we can amend it. Reflect that.
Did you want to make that motion or would you prefer Councillor Ackerman or somebody else to say? To amend it? Or to-
I think it's Ackerman's suggestion, I think you should.
Yeah, sure.
If you'd like to revise it, I would appreciate that, yeah.
I guess I'll just speak a little bit slowly here. I make the recommendation to revise the community grant program. Yes.
You make the motion, not the recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes, there are.
Sorry. Make the motion to sorry, I'm losing my words. Modify the community grant program to include insurance as a coverable item.
sorry, can I just, so why don't we just do the motion so that we look at it at the policy bylaw. So just like motion
Okay.
the policy to the bylaw committee for further discussion, and we'll bring it back to council as opposed to putting in all the things we're gonna add.
That works for you guys.
It's your motion, you choose it however you want.
Sorry, oh my gosh.
You go for it.
Yeah, you're right, it could be a half-page motion. So there's a lot of really great ideas that went into it, so yeah.
I guess, just refer it to policy bylaw for updates for draft to be created of the changes.
Go ahead.
Try to be
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
I think we would just say hereby refer an amendment to the community grant program in regards to third-party insurance coverage.
Insurance and timelines for,
Yeah,
timelines
yeah, they put all those other things where it goes to and timelines.
for application.
Yeah, just drop,
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Ackerman, we'll just make sure that this is, good, if you're good with that.
Yeah, so I guess I can read it out just so everyone's here. I move that the Council of Town Colder is hereby to refer an amendment to the community grant program to the policy bylaw review committee.
Any further discussion? We'll call question, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, let me see what else there is. Okay, so we have that committee of the whole. Then we have another committee of the whole, from July 5th. Was there anything within that, that anyone had any questions on? So that's the one from July 5th. If none, I'm taking a motion to accept the committee minutes. Councilor Lawrence,
I think that the committee minutes presented in this meeting are accepted.
any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Now we'll move to internal reports. The first is the financial report year to date. And again, I'm going to go with any questions from anyone about the financial report. Go ahead.
I have a few questions. So just about on page 1, under the general municipal, with the franchise fees, or sorry, is that the GST? Is it done like once a year? The pulling of that in? it's currently at zero.
I think, Madam Mayor, basically that's kind of, when we collect and we remit to do whatever, so it's just kind of help it. It's not a budgeted item because we don't physically really end up paying any. We get reimbursed for anything we pay, and if we charge it on certain things, then we have to remit that. So that's why there's nothing budgeted, but at certain times until the checks are written and stuff takes place, it just shows as an entry.
Do you have another question?
Yep, I just had a question. Actually, I was looking at all of them, on the insurance, on a lot of these, pages, the year-to-date for each category for the insurance is a little bit high. In fact, on most of them, we're almost at, what we budgeted. So I was just, questioning as to why was the insurance so much more this year and what the implications might be if we end up doubling on some of that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, basically, just when we get our insurance bill and you break it out and depending on additions, deletions, or whatever, like when we get the new garbage truck and different things like that coming on, there are things that are put on there. So it's a once a year type thing that generally comes. So I mean, the numbers that are there won't change unless there's additions or deletions to buildings or equipment or anything to that effect. So it is slightly over in one of the areas, but that's the rates, insurance rates obviously are going up all the time. So despite the cool effort with everybody's problems.
Okay, thank you. And then just one last question, just under protective services, the fines are obviously quite lower than budgeted, and based on like staffing concerns and stuff, is it going to have a huge impact on the budget moving forward without that extra expected revenue?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, as we said, when we were, looking at the peace officer programming and the budgeting, both internal for interim and final, we've never really, been able to kind of get a real good set number for that yet. So in estimating, even talking to the former police officer and looking at, kind of the fines that could possibly come, 20,000 was kind of a number that we felt was attainable. But again, as indicated, there are a number of provincial tickets that are backed up in the courts, at which such time as if and when they get to the courts and if and when we do end up winning, we may get some monies. And as I said before, the government also has slowly clawed back some of the monies that we're getting as well through COVID. So we're still trying to get a solid estimate for that. At this point, we still haven't got it. So that's maybe a high number, but I felt it was a number that hopefully would be attainable. But it'll, obviously the revenues are slightly under, it'll, somewhat affect maybe the overall picture and protect it, but hopefully there's other areas that will do well in terms of less expense or something like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Chris, under recreation and parks, there's where does the salaries and benefits go there?
So we're talking around 74, cultural, that's cultural.
72.
72. Well, there's a portion of a number of the public works guys' wages. And for instance, the League Hand Parks, a good portion of his salary goes there, but there's also a chunk from the summer people we have, there's a portion from Kevin, there's a portion from various positions that go in there. So not full salaries, but portions. So portions of their salaries in terms of a lot of things are spread out between the various departments, water to parks to cultural, like the community center, et cetera. So, okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, just a general observation, if I could. So we had determined a little while ago that our services were going to be sort of self-sustaining, right? And do we need to do another bit of a review on those? I mean, they're not terribly off, but I see that we are sort of going a little bit into deficit with them, hey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if you're referring to other than like water, sewer, garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, those ones, I think most cases are showing slightly or pretty close to breaking even.
Yeah, they're fairly close, but they're showing a deficit, and we're also, our reserves staying consistent, so we don't have reserves for, do we have reserves for both of them?
Yeah, there is a
We've got
small
transfer
amount.
reserves for the garbage. And
Water has
it's 20,000 for,
35,000 under water.
Mhm.
30,000 in garbage.
So it just seems to me that I think we're seeing a little bit of an increase, but we haven't really shared that increase as much with our residents. We've been really good at keeping it low, but are we seeing an increase that's sort of outstripping our ability to do that?
Well, we've been fortunate in the sense, as we said, even our assessment, that there's been enough growth that generally, we have, increased our revenues without really increasing the rate somewhat.
Yeah.
And, there was a few years where, for instance, sewer was one where we hit really hard for a few years because of the sewage pipeline in the city, which was a big hit. And, so now we've eased off a little bit. Water, like I say, still is showing that, a budget potential profit of $114,000. So, that's pretty decent. And garbage still holds its own. Storm sewer obviously does not right now, again, because of the big expense of the constructed wetlands and that type of stuff. So again, we can look at slight increases at the interim or final budgets. When we do those, generally we do these rates with our interim budget.
Yeah.
This will kick in January, February of each year, like February is usually. Time to advertise, so.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to have that conversation on the table, because I know that we always want to keep our rates good, but we always wanted to show, we always want to be sustained, keep them self-sustaining, and show that little bit of extra for reserves for the bits extras that we need and stuff. So I was, as I was looking at it, I just thought, maybe our costs are starting to outstrip a little bit what we're charging now, hey?
Definitely something to keep an eye on for sure, but like I say, I know when Director of Corporate Services, Mike and myself looked at it with this budget, we still felt that, things were okay for, this budget. But certainly, and it's something that over the years that I've said, like, I don't really want to have water, sewer, storm, and some of the garbage necessarily funded via tax dollars if I can, because there are service charges for those, and they should look after themselves.
Yeah.
Other than some of your big debt repayments and some of that.
Yeah.
The big projects may have to be from reserves or other stuff you have because they are big payments. But we do try to make them self-sufficient for sure.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any further questions?
If there are none, I'm going to ask for a motion to accept the internal report.
I'll make that motion. Great, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the CAO report. I saw that there was a couple of different things within this, mainly the town solicitor presentation. It kind of looked like you were asking if we would like to have that presentation. So thoughts were really, I thought that would be great.
Yeah.
To have that presentation. You're okay? Well, you're coming.
Big smile.
So if we could do that, if everyone outside of Council Coutry would agree to that. And then, is there any other questions on the CAO report? Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding the parade invitations, I noticed that the August 3rd, what dates was listed there? August 23rd? And I haven't even asked a question mark, I think we had already done there too. But I found out I can actually go to it now, so.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I guess we could definitely put, let's say, I mainly put ones at this point that I've officially received an invitation to. I know that Council Florence has listed some other ones or whatever that you can certainly look at via that list. The other thing I will say with the City of Lethbridge one, the last few years, prior to COVID, we almost didn't go to it on the basis of the criteria that they had for entering it was such that you had to be decorated to the extent of almost 90% of your entry, and they didn't want certain things, and you had to have certain insurances and all kinds of different things on there. So, so it almost made it to the point of where the previous council said, well, they almost don't want us.
Too difficult.
They want your stampede parade or your turn of the roses type folks, and ours is maybe not that caliber. The little towns appreciate what we bring. Large people still do. So I like I say, I haven't seen an official invitation from the city, like that was the criteria the last 2 years ago. We got that, so. But we can certainly ask them if they have criteria and bring it forward, for sure.
I've gone on their parades with, like, and they do have a criteria. What does our float actually look like? Like, is it, I don't even know, it's like a town one.
They redid it, I can,
It was great last year, wasn't it?
in
I just
the
don't remember what.
park thing, was
Yeah.
the last year.
Yeah, it was, but is it like, is it a float or is it just something on a truck?
So it's a float.
I would imagine that would be considered decorated at that point
But
then.
your vehicle has to be there.
Yeah.
Oh, just the pom-poms on it, call it a day.
Yeah, yeah.
Myself, I think that we should. I think that like we are literally neighbors to them. And I think that from my thought, this is kind of one of those things of being out in community, whether it's here or there, because they are so close to us, that I would really like to do that if we could.
Can we reach out to them and see what, get them to send us an invitation and see what it says?
Other questions about the CAO report? Councilor Florence?
I just have a question about what I just commented about the Lethbridge County functional exercise. That's really exciting, that that's happening. Has there been any further details about anything like that, or just that they're doing this exercise, like via the regional thing, or?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's not via the regional thing even necessarily, it's basically just something that they, brief information has been sent out that they did meet with some of the surrounding, I think fire chiefs or something to that effect, and maybe more even, didn't involve us because we weren't invited to that particular meeting. But in the past, there was a grant to do these things on kind of a regional basis, and we had participated previously with those, so they're just sort of suggesting and working on a date for that. The date they had to come forward with happened to be right during the Alberta Municipalities Convention, so I think that's not really a good date at the time. If you're looking for, council representatives or CAOs, that type of stuff, that need to be attending that conference. But, and then they said from there they would reach out, to the municipalities to determine what roles they wanted to play in this kind of thing. And then that would also, if we participate, it qualifies for, the requirements of the local or the Alberta Emergency Management Act. It comes into play now, so we've done that before as well. So I don't know much more other than that. And as far as the regional thing, still, I know we're trying to set up a meeting of CAOs, which due to summertime, due to people's availability, it's been scrapped twice now, so we're still looking for a date for that, so. That's the update on that. So.
Very cool.
Other questions?
Sorry, just one more thing about the area structure plan, for the concept meeting. Just because, there's been several meetings and several amendments, and, we're really excited to see it. Yeah, I would love to get council's input on that. I know that you guys have been working hard on it, but I think that would be awesome to see it soon.
It is hopefully, once we have this, we're hopefully close to being able to bring it forward a little bit further, so.
Okay.
It's coming. Here to keep you excited about.
Other questions? Councilor Ackerman?
Thank you. Just a quick one on the solar energy project. Do we have any sort of ETA on when that possibly could be going live?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did receive an email late this afternoon that looks like possibly the final commissioning, a meeting possibly as early as this Friday. And then I think from there, some training, et cetera, and then not necessarily will the switch get flipped on for good, but at least it'll be to the point of where that part's done and then possibly flipped. So it's close to.
Are we planning on doing anything for an unveiling, a grand opening,
Certainly can. I mean, like MCCAC and government and whoever would love it if there's lots of people there when you officially turn the switch and get the media attention or whatever, so.
even if it's more of just like a photo op type of thing that could go to, like we could send that to media.
Yeah.
Or invite them to come or something like that. I think that would be kind of cool. to do that. It's one of those celebrate our successes type of things.
Well, we can definitely, I think we can definitely do that.
All right. I'm going to move on to the Director of Operations report. Is there any questions on that one?
Yes, if I could please.
Mm-hmm.
Item number 2, Lethbridge County should be completing the reshaping of Range Road 223 from 45th Avenue to 55th Avenue in the first week of August. Can you just unpack that a little bit? First off, did we contract for them to do that, or do they still have responsibility for that piece of road?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, we have the responsibility for it, but in our budgeting sessions, our Director of Operations had indicated that he had talked to the county people to do this county work, and we did budget, I think, $25,000 in our budget towards that. And it was cheaper than getting some of the people to do it, and they said they could do it quite well, so he was quite happy with that. So
Are they also applying dust suppression there?
they did do some already along, I think, maybe 223 and possibly 45th or 55th there too, I think so.
I see 55th had been done, but 223 between 45th and 55th, that whole end of town gets completely coated in dust.
Usually the residents for sure get the opportunity to pay for between their, in front of the properties, and usually they've done it, and we've kind of worked with the county on that as well, so.
Okay. So, can I ask you to please have a conversation with Kevin to see if when they're doing that work along there, when they're grounding it, that they are gonna do some kind of dust suppression along there?
He does get it, I know he gets it done every year for sure, once or twice, so.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Council Barnes?
I have a few questions. With number 7, talking about the clear bowl components of the spray park, but just talking about the slipperiness of the spray park. If we could maybe have a quick conversation about that, if that's something we want to talk about. Just because it's, like, my understanding is the money's still being held, like it hasn't been released yet. And so is this something that we need to talk about and deal with, because it's continuing to be slippery and not good? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I can give you a pretty good update. We had received actually a complaint came I think on Monday morning from someone with a video of their smaller child that had taken a pretty good fall and was had fairly good on the cement or on the pad. So in light of that, Kevin did, our Director of Operations spent, looked at about 3 or 4 hours worth of video from Saturday afternoon. And definitely there were, incidents of kids not running excessively, but slipping. So, we feel it is a concern and something that needs to be addressed. And obviously this lady that submitted this video to us as well. So we did contact Park and Play yesterday and the day before. They actually came down late this afternoon, the boss, as well as the guy that we've been contracting with to look at it, and basically told Kevin that they will fix whatever needs to be done, they will get it fixed, whatever the cost. And basically what they were talking about is what they would have to do, would be grind it off to the concrete again, and then apply a rubbery anti-slip surface, which should probably have been done maybe, in the first place, whatever. And obviously that, they were saying they need that to be done as soon as possible. They indicated it's a firm from Manitoba that will be coming to do this, that are there. So they will be getting back to Kevin as soon as possibly tomorrow, with a date. She was saying, or the crew that they talked to said, well, it'll be August. She was saying that's not acceptable, I want it sooner. So, as early as tomorrow, I may have a better date, but they definitely said at their cost, at no charge to the town, they will get this thing rectified, whatever it costs, to get it done, so.
They do it properly.
Which should have been done a long time ago, they tried different things, because I know even the stuff that was just put on there recently, Kevin, that fellow also came down and looked at it first thing this morning, and basically said, well, we can apply the more gritty stuff on there that Councilor Poultry had seen, the sort of the one, and then the grittier one, so well, we could apply that, and Kevin and I talked and said, well, no, we're dealing with Park and Play, they're the company we got with. If there is warranty problems, if there is situations, and we've got some pullback, that's who we need to deal with. And they said the lady was super good, the boss that was down today, and said, no, we will rectify this and sooner than later. You know, there was talk about, you know, it will involve shutting it down for, I don't know, a week or possibly, you know, that kind of thing to do all that. So we talked a little bit about, you know, in the interim, do we, you know, this week in particular, it's super hot. You know, it's kind of nice to have open, but it is slippery. Or do we shut it down until that's done? But, I mean, we do have a sign that says water shoes are recommended, you know, that's there. We said, what do we have to say? I mean, he said, you know, you could say they're mandatory, but then you have to have someone there supervising. So that's not maybe a good thing. And if somebody does, is that opening up insurance liabilities, et cetera? So I'm not sure what council's thoughts are in terms of, you know, seeing how fast they're going to come and then determine whether or not we operate as is, or whether we shut down until such time as they get this fixed.
Councilor Patrick?
You know, they've tried to fix this so many times. Tried one product, tried another product, tried another product. And now we're on our, whatever, 5th product or whatever, 4th, I don't know. Rubber is our suggestion. I have no experience with rubber splash pads, spray parks. The only ones I know are room finished concrete that I've experienced. And so I wonder, I mean, they said the last solution would work, they said the last solution would work. So I'm just very skeptical about rubber as well. And so I don't know if they can point to an example of a rubber one, of the exact product that they were going to use, and we can phone that municipality and get references. I would encourage that, because I don't know that, you know, the 5th product or the 6th product or the 7th product is going to actually be any better than actual room finished concrete, like it should have been in the first place. So that's my thought on the finishing. As to whether it stays open or not, my kids were just there. Just came from there. And I mean, there are other spray parks in the region you can go to if it comes down to it. It's too much of a risk, a liability risk, I guess. And I have heard, you know, people commenting on Facebook saying, well, it's better to have it open than have it closed, I guess. So if I think it's a concern, there are other spray parks in the region, but I don't want the town to take on any additional liability and have a lawsuit in our hands if someone gets hurt. So I don't know in terms of protecting ourselves if we need to do anything else, because I would still like to see my kids playing on it, even if it's a little bit slippery. As long as there's, you know, clear term thing in terms of liability, but I don't want to see the term of something gets sued either. So that's kind of my stance on it. So.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And further to Councilor Beautre's comments in terms of recommendation, they did indicate that what they were talking about now has been done on some, and they could give us recommendations to talk to in terms of that. So definitely, in talking with their director of operations, that's something we will do for sure. The other thing we talked about in terms of keeping it open, I mean, despite the fact that, like you say, there is a, you know, a board up there that says no food and drink and, you know, sandals or whatever footwear recommended. We thought we could put a sandwich board in the middle or something when you come in that just said, you know, maybe not mandatory, but water shoes strongly recommended or something to that effect, just to encourage it a little bit more.
Cautions,
Yes, something to that, like you see your wet floor signs when you go to the store, and wash the floor or something like that. Not quite to that degree, but we don't want to say mandatory, because I think then that opens up the liability issue, but if we said, you know, slippery surface, you know, water shoes strongly recommended, and it's smack in the middle when you come in and see it. And like I say, hopefully as early as tomorrow or first thing Thursday, we're supposed to have an idea of when this firm would come down to fix this. And then, you know, I mean, if it's gonna be, you know, 3 weeks or something till they're coming, well, maybe that's a little too long. If it's, you know, next week, maybe not so bad. But again, like I said, Kevin looked at 3 or 4 hours of video. I mean, they were kids that weren't recklessly running, that definitely works. And it seemed like in certain spots, and, you know, I looked at it too and said, well, it seems to be these spots, but overall, no, it needs to be done right.
And sorry, to add on, even if, like, I know we're not talking about extra grip, but when I was looking at those samples, the extra grip one didn't seem to add that much extra grip in my opinion. Didn't seem to make any difference whether or not it was high grip or low grip.
So
Still,
scrape your arms and knees a little bit worse.
you just scrape it worse, yeah, exactly. It didn't seem to add any extra slip resistance in my opinion.
Wasn't that our first surface we put on, was the rubber surfacing?
It was epoxy, I think.
Was it an oxy?
Epoxy,
Oh, epoxy.
epoxy, right?
Put a concrete job in the first place, and
Yeah.
that's why we tried to cover. And it just doesn't-
So if they grind it down into the cement, can they not just put another layer of cement in there?
That's definitely a possibility, as I said, it would grind it off to the concrete and then apply to the surface, so
Yeah,
maybe another layer of concrete, as you say, like other ones might be better.
You have to do the normal amount of concrete as it cracks, right? So you have to add a few inches, and then I don't know if like those fixtures get too low or high, like you have to probably move the fixtures. Extend the pipes and redo it or something like that, like.
yeah, I guess my concern is that I'm thinking about rubber, and I'm thinking about rubber getting wet. And
It sounds
wet rubber is super slippery in my experience. Whatever is it a texturized surface that is a, but yeah, I appreciate your thoughts because, you know, getting good references from other communities that have this kind of surfacing, maybe they'll set our minds at ease. But yeah, in terms of closing the park down, can we put some big sprinklers out into the park there for kids to play?
I know a former rec coordinator did sprinklers in the park.
Yeah, it feels awful to have this beautiful structure that they've been waiting for years for, and then shut it down.
Disneyland is right there, you can't go.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think the reason I was adding it on because I was hoping we could open it up even later. So,
yeah, I know. But I mean, we have people bringing in videos of children hitting their heads, right?
Yeah, the one, I mean, Kevin was looking at the cameras that we have there, that was, he was looking at, so.
But you know, that's been brought to our attention now. That the surfacing is unsafe.
and absolutely, I'm not disagreeing with that. I guess I'm just, what is our liability here? Like in a playground, kids swing on swings, my kid's been hit in the head
Yeah.
by another kid, right? Like that is an acceptable risk for some reason. And is a slippery place surface an acceptable risk or not? I guess.
And I honestly consider
And
that.
so like my kids being there tonight, my son did slip, he did hurt himself, but, you know, that is a risk that we acknowledge and know, and go there anyway. So, just like the playground, you swing and you get hit in the head, right? Like
Yes.
that's an acceptable risk that we go there and know and still want to play, even though it's dangerous. Or, you know, an acceptable risk, right? We're not talking huge risks, so.
I think, like, my personal thought on that is that, if you put up a sign, if you're talking about, you have it on the sign, like, this is kind of a use at your own risk type of thing. Then we allow people to get it fixed, and then we continue on from there. I wouldn't really like to see it shut down, I don't think at this point, like, I think people are aware of the risks, there's certain things that we need to help with that, but, they're assuming some kind of liability themselves by going. Is my thought.
And there is a certain amount of risk to a pool surface, you know, if it's a hotel, whether it's an outdoor, whether it is running, walking, whatever, there is a little bit of some risk.
Oh, yeah.
And I think even just hearing that and hearing it from Admin that they haven't recommended, that Admin has not recommended that, you know, look at closing it down, just putting in some of that stuff, so, I mean, I think that we would be okay with some of those signage check things.
I have heard though that water shoes still are not sufficient, but
I think it's still just bringing some awareness to the situation, right?
Yeah.
That people are aware of it. Okay, any other questions on this report before we move on? Councilor Barnes.
So a few weeks back, we talked about the flags and the flags up front. I just had a quick question on that, it's not on the report, but what is the plan for the flags? Are we going to leave the orange flags up? Or are they gonna come down? Are the Canada Day flags gonna stay up?
Thank you. The orange ones I understood, and I'm not sure, I know we were talking about taking them down until closer to Indigenous Day or week in September there. So possibly they would come down now. Canada Day, I know there was talk about the possibility of them being up for putting the park or Miners Days, whatever you want to call it, towards the end of August. Whether they stay there from now till then or put them up again, I'm not sure in terms of that, but.
I think we should take them and then go back, because then it seems more like it's special instead of, it's always up. That's kind of my thought.
What happened to the Miners Day flags? For the Miners Day event, is both the event use those? Because there is like town flags for the event, like at home.
Like just the regular,
Yeah, like isn't there's Miners Day flags at every Miners Day at home,
Like along the,
Main Street, yeah.
oh, I don't,
possibly Miners Day is room.
I don't think so.
They were talking about a banner across Main Street. It's almost like Miners Days or whatever, so.
I'll follow up on that. I'm pretty sure there's it's either town flags or Miners Day flags, but the Public Works usually puts something out.
I don't even know.
Canada flags, and we did go to flags recently. We do have like our town flag at the wall in Imperial Meadows Park and down Myers Park. So I think this is there. But yeah, we can definitely pull the orange down and even pull Canada ones down up closer to the end of August.
I think it just, I think it, as Council Patrick indicated, like it would add to the maybe genuineness of it, and so we're being more, intentional about when we're putting them out and when we're bringing it back and stuff like that. But anyway, I was just curious, because I know we had this kind of random conversation about it and was wondering how to follow up. Thank you.
All right, any other questions on this one?
Are we still on the are we going to the Director of Operations?
We're on that one,
Okay. I was curious about the location of the speed monitor sign on Sundance Drive. I don't know if I noticed it when I was.
It's just down the street from Scott's, like closer to my house, on that one light pole,
Going which direction?
going, yeah, towards my house. I don't know the directions. Is it east, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, it's east.
Eastbound, so leaving town, or.
So if you drive from my house to Mayor's house, it's
Yeah.
about halfway in the middle.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And just in case you're wondering, it is on ghost mode now. It's not working. We purposely did that because our Director of Operations did put in sort of the information that we had from it when it was working. So we thought, well, let's just, which virtually shows not a lot of speed, in fact, almost nil. So we thought, well, let's put it on ghost and, still record the same data, but just see if without it flashing there, it catches people going faster for another week or something, so.
These things are really cool, like, it's really neat to see, like, just the data that you get from it, I just think it's really fascinating to see actually even how many vehicles drive by and things.
Isn't that great?
Councilor Ackerman?
Yeah, I think just living right next to it, to me, it seems like a visual deterrent. It does seem like traffic is going a little bit slower down the street. The only drawback to that is sometimes you do get drunk individuals that are racing each other down the road as well. So it adds a little bit of noise at a time.
Like cars?
No, like people on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I was doing that, but I wasn't drunk. A sober individual.
Yeah. So depending on where you put it, that is maybe a little bit of a concern that might pop up is just the noise depending on who you have there.
I think it encourages physical activity.
Yes, loud physical activity, which is fantastic. The louder the better, as long as people are exercising.
What it says to me is that the curve in the road actually helps naturally slow people down.
If only we could have something like this for like, extra stop signs where it would record that, 'cause that would be
How, if they stop or not.
It's very cool. All right, any other questions before if someone makes a motion to accept the CAO report? Okay, thank you.
I move that, the chief administrative officer report is hereby accepted as presented.
Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried, thank you. Okay, so now we'll move into our council member reports, questions. I'm going to start with Councilor Forrest today.
Okay, so for me, there hasn't been a lot going on, since our last official, council meeting. I was trying to look back at the weeks and I was like, this is kind of been a little bit of a schmoz. But yeah, so the only thing, that I've done externally is the Community Futures Board meeting, and it was actually the AGM. So it's business as usual, and then we're on break with meetings until September 2022. And then I just did want to mention, because I think I had brought it up with you guys, that there was a new executive director, but I don't think I shared his name. But it's Troy Granger. So he's now been there for a little bit. And then, yeah, and he's doing fantastic. He's really great. Has some big shoes to fill, as mentioned, but yeah. And then the other thing was the high school awards night. So that is it for my report.
Councilor Arkins.
Like Councilor Florence, I was at high school award ceremony as well. I did have a couple of AGMs that I attended on June 23rd. I attended the Old Man Watershed Council AGM. And then right after that one finished, I attended the South Carolina AGM. So that was a busy day. On June 22nd, I attended the National Knowledge Exchange Workshop on Rural Crime Prevention. So that was hosted by a group out of Halifax, so they had people from all over the country kind of sharing knowledge on what works for them. I believe I forwarded some resources that came from that to everyone there. And then just yesterday, we had policy and bylaw committee with Councilor Parents. And that was pretty much it for.
Great, thank you. Councilor Poetry.
We had a couple MSDA meetings since our last council meeting. We've already reviewed those minutes. There's no questions on those. So, and then in addition to that, I was interviewed as part of Cambridge City News for our support against the provincial apps, which was published a few days ago. So 8 days ago, 119 views. So
Can you share it?
no, I don't. Nobody should see my interview. It's horrible.
Really great.
I can share it if you want. And then my other question was, we had previously heard that SMB Apps was going to bring us a proposal for some kind of redesign at some point. Are they still in the process of that?
Actually, I was thinking about that today, that I was gonna contact them again, but I know he said he was tied up till after the FCM convention there in June, so he should be available now to do that, so.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Caldwell.
Thank you. I attended the vision scoping sessions with Alistair, as well as the high school awards. And then we also had MSDA on the 5th as well. And we had that report, of course, tonight. And I just wanted to comment that I was excited to see how many applications for solar panels were coming forward to us. That's just kind of gets me excited, but that was it. Thank you.
Great. I attended the visioning sessions as well with Hollister. I had an executive meeting for Chinook Arch, went to the high school awards night, which was lovely. I think that was just a really special event, and I really enjoyed that. And I think that's all, because I think that we had council meeting after we had our leaders caucus in Medicine Hat, I believe. We had council meeting
That's
there, so.
correct, yeah.
So yeah, pretty much everything I think is winding down for the summer at this point. One other thing that I did have is we had our Mayors and Reeves, and it was a combination of Southeast and Southwest Alberta. And so that was interesting too, just being able to hear more from the other side of Southern Alberta, what's happening with them. All right. And I if there's no questions, we'll move on to external reports. I'm just gonna ask, does anybody have anything from the external reports that they would like to discuss, or do they have any questions on anything? And if not, can I get a motion to accept the external reports? Go ahead, Councilor Lawrence.
I move that the external reports presented in this meeting are accepted.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. All right, so now we're gonna look at correspondence here too. And is there anything, does anybody have any questions on these? If not, can I get a motion to acknowledge the correspondence?
I have a question. For the June 2023 deadline to complete joint use planning and agreements with the school boards, do we have an joint use, do we have this in place, or is this something we need to work on?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, it's something that, town planner and Corwin and myself have been discussing, and it is something that still needs to be worked on. New thing that they brought in, so.
And I guess this is, because I know we discussed this during the school vision, that at some point the town had put money in towards this elementary school for that to be a community gym as well, so I think this is a good opportunity to outline those things, right, and then get them documented so that we can.
Do we have those agreements somewhere stored from the past?
With the school?
Yeah, with the elementary school as a community. So like, were they actually signed agreements or were they just,
I honestly
A verbal.
don't know. I know I've heard it said many, many times that it was a community gym at least that was put in there, but whether there's an agreement, I can't, I'm not sure if there's anything right.
okay. It'd be nice to just sort of do a little bit of an archive search to see if we have something.
And is this something that we would bring to a community of the whole type of thing?
I would suspect, I know town planner format has indicated that, they are working on some at different places in the ORSC organization, obviously. So she may have some templates and samples or whatever we can sort of look at and start with. And that's how I would see it going. We can get a whole discussion.
All right, any other discussion? If there's not also a question, all in favor, or does someone move this to be on?
Okay.
Oh, who would like to make a motion?
I make that motion.
Okay.
I move that the correspondence presented in this meeting is hereby acknowledged and filed.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, now we're gonna move on to other business. The first item we have here is the Shadow Minister for Rural Economic Development. Sent us a letter regarding federal funding for rural communities. It looks like there is going to be a forum that is happening. Right, is that what it is? So.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to attend that, I don't even know where it is. Where it is. Go ahead, Mr. George.
Did you get a date on it?
No,
No details yet.
currently I think they're just seeking that feedback for their agenda, which I think that if we can get feedback, and I think our feedback would probably be on par with a lot of other municipalities. But I think that we should definitely look at potentially attending in the future. This is something that we talk about a lot with, in our conversations, and they come up kind of as part of other conversations, issues implicating our budget and things like that. So, I mean, even if we don't give feedback, I think that we should still look forward to potentially attending in the future.
Does anybody have any feedback that they would like to submit at this point, or are we okay just to kind of take this as a notice and then move on from there once we get more?
I think it's a conversation that needs to happen to ensure that, per capita, that we're sort of seeing some of the same dollars. I'm not sure that this is the right sort of format in which to have that conversation, because often what happens, and it doesn't matter who is in opposition, often what happens is that information is used more as a hammer than an authentic conversation to support us. And so I would like to find a good authentic way to be able to have a conversation. Or first, I guess, just really, maybe we can find someone who can do some good data mining for us to see, in fact, both provincially and federally, is one of our rural constituents receiving the same amount of sort of dollars investment as someone who is living in a larger urban center. That'd be a great project for a student.
Council Florence.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you brought that up because I jotted down a few issues that I thought were important. But I think that's one of the big ones is that the inequity in the support, and so that like, you know, that size is a marker or whatever, and it's not tax based and things like that. I don't necessarily agree on which side. I think it's just a really good conversation to be a part of. But I think that there isn't equity when it comes to how municipalities are supported. And when we look to the size of our community and look compared to like Fort McLeod, who has a very broad tax base, and you know, what's working for them in terms of federal support, which is what this is talking about, is probably not gonna work for us because we have a much smaller tax base, right? And I think that's actually a huge issue. So I think that would be one of the most pressing ones, but I believe that other municipalities would identify that as well, other smalls. I also, yeah, that's the big one.
It is, but they will then have a conversation with us that says it's about how you manage municipality, how you diversify your tax base, the strategies that you implement to bring in commercial and, right?
Sure, yeah, no,
That's-
absolutely.
Then that, and I think that we're being really smart in moving forward in that direction right now. But, yeah, but I think that there's a conversation that has to happen.
All right, so from this, is there any action that needs to happen from this, or are we okay with just keeping this as it is for now, and then waiting for more information to come? Does that work for everybody? Okay. Gonna move on now to the department, or I'm going to my part. National Defense, regarding the Department of Dignity package. I thought that was really quite interesting and quite lovely. To submit this letter. And so would somebody like to make a motion that we submit, that I can write a letter?
Sure, I can do that. Great, thank you. I move that the Council of Town of Colhurst hereby authorize Mayor Montina to submit a letter of appreciation of service for Captain Florence Eileen Look, CD2, for 36 years of service in the Canadian Armed Forces Reserve, including 11 Royal Canadian Air Cadet Squadron in Lethbridge, Alberta.
Any discussion?
Just that that's really cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, very cool. All in favor? That's carried, thank you. All right, moving on to the Métis Nation of Alberta, local number 2003, regarding the Métis Nation flag. I just need to go to this here. Okay. So did they want to actually give us a flag? Is that what they were requesting? I don't remember this. That wasn't written down.
That's good.
Temporarily, yeah. When, okay, so no, the Louis Riel Day is November 16th. So on this, I will make this motion. That the Council of the Town of Colhurst hereby accept the invitation from the Métis Nation of Alberta Local number 2003 to raise and temporarily fly the Métis Nation flag in Colhurst in celebration of Métis Week from November 15th to 21st in recognition of Louis Riel Day on November 16th. Is there any discussion on this?
Can I ask Chris what our policy is around that? We changed our policy to allow us to do that. Did we not?
No, we didn't change the flag policy at all recently, but we did obviously fly the Oki flags.
With that?
We did fly the orange Oki flags
Yeah,
a year ago, but we didn't change any
But-
policy.
but would it be do we have a separate policy for right in front of our town office, or is the Oki flags, we put up the new flag poles by the town entrance, right?
I don't think there's any. There is a flag policy on raising lower when to do those types of things, but
Yeah,
I think it talks about, I don't think it says anything about
what kind of flags we
the
get?
Oki or the Métis or the Blackfoot or the ones that have come into play recently. So I think we just decided a year ago with the Truth and Reconciliation stuff to arrange for the orange
To
flags.
do that.
We did that. Obviously, we did this year, so.
Good. Well, that makes me happy. That makes me happy.
Any further discussion? If none, question, all in favor? That is carried, thank you. And then we're gonna move on to the Royal Canadian Legion regarding the tax release relief request. And so, we do have the memo, from CA Alberta, in our package here. And, we'll just start out, there is a recommendation that we do provide, the relief for this. And so, we'll start out, would anybody like to make a motion to do this?
I'll make that motion.
Great.
Sorry, did I just jump on top of that one super quick?
Do you want to read it out?
Sure.
Thank you.
I move that in recognition of the work done by the Colders Legion in the community, a 100% reduction be given on the municipal portion of the 2022 property tax levy for a total reduction of $2,426.58 on account number, do I read the tax account number out as well? Okay, I guess it's 152050060. I think the cursor's sitting right on there.
Any discussion on this item? Go ahead.
I was curious to why, I understand why it's an exemption that we have to grant, based on the documents that are provided. This is something that we're doing frequently, and it seems like we've always done it. Is there any way to just make this a fixed policy, I suppose, or is it just going to always be, July or that? We'll do this again next year.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess as you indicated, I mean, traditionally it has come forward every year. And just for historical background, I mean, there were a few years where council of the day chose to not give 100%. It was 75 or 50s or something at that point. The other way you could look at doing it would be to put in your budget a grant amount for this, say $2,500, whatever the case is. It's in the grant budget for a grant under whatever category it might be. With knowledge that that's what it goes towards, then administratively could just be done with that way. Council will be given, well, I guess you're given a chance once a year with the budget to determine, in a sense at that point, whether or not you want to consider that it's put in there or get chances of.
Question.
All right. Any further discussion on this one?
I guess I'm just wondering, for previous councils, I would like to understand, I guess, why they decided to do less, because I feel like the amount is fairly minor in the grand scheme of things in our town budget. Obviously makes a difference to the Legion, so I guess do you have any background as to why they would, these councils would have reduced the budget?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My recollection of those discussions were such that it was just felt that at certain times, they felt that maybe there wasn't enough different monies not being put back into the community with some of the fundraising efforts or something to that effect. And just different thinkings in terms of whether they should or shouldn't grant it accordingly. So that was, as far as I can recall, the basis of the discussions. But it has come back to 100% for quite a few years now. It was only once or twice that it was a little less.
Feels like a merit way to keep it alive.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
More or less, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Just given the comments in here about like the MTA and that they're exempt from taxation, and then further down it's talking about like wiping it, like this obviously is something that other places do as well, right? And so it's not that uncommon. And, based on the recommendation in recognition for the work done in our community, I absolutely support the 100% reduction.
As a standing policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be nice to, I mean, we have this in place now, but perhaps that's something that we can refer to our bylaw policy committee to explore just a standing policy on that, so that we don't have to revisit it. Because you're right, it shouldn't be based on sort of holding it over your head as a merit type of a because we know that they do community service. We know that they, they do provide funds for a number of different things in the community. Again, it's hard to gauge because COVID over the past years, I mean, people aren't as active in that stuff, but they've, the amount of money they've donated to playgrounds, to the schools, and to that was.
So how about, what if we finish up with this motion, then we can make another motion for it to go to policy bylaw or the creationist, we want to do that? Is that works for everybody?
I think it's a great idea.
All right, so I'm gonna call question, all in favor? That's carried. Would somebody like to make that motion? Councilor Clifford, you were looking at it, brought that up.
Yes, yes, I move that we refer the municipal tax, property tax for Legion to policy bylaw for the draft of the policy regarding that grant, ongoing grant.
All right, does that reflect?
Just maybe add on to the end, for our ongoing grant.
And then if you can read that out, please.
I move that council refers the Legion tax reduction to be forwarded to the policy bylaw for a policy on ongoing grant.
Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, the next thing that we have here is Alberta municipalities. We have the 2022 convention. I think it's being held in Calgary from September 21st to 23rd. And would somebody like to make a motion that all council and CAO are authorized to attend? That's right.
I move that all members of council and chief CAO officer are authorized to attend the 2022 Alberta Municipalities Convention and Trade Show in Calgary from September 21st to 23rd, 2022.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, I have my hand up to say,
Okay.
I would like to have a conversation
Sure.
about this. Did anybody have a chance to take a look at some of the pre-convention information sessions going on? They have an all-day legal session.
And then did they not have that other one too that I think you just most recently attended?
Yes,
Okay, the EO.
public engagement, which is fantastic, and I keep telling you guys, it's like so good. So I just, I'm not sure if this motion, I think those sessions, are they running on the 20th? The
Day before, yeah.
the pre-convention sessions? Do we want to sort of just change the date, September 20th to 23rd? And that way, if any council members want to sign up for the pre-convention learning, they can. And so when do you have to book things by?
Well, registration is now open, it says.
Yeah, but in terms of like rooms and things like that, right?
Well, I have rooms booked, but not so much for looking at the extra day. I don't think, I might have.
So, once you're booked for the body at the conference, the previous day probably is.
Yeah, you kind of hold the rooms accordingly.
Yeah, because they do have a full day legal seminar that's facilitated by RF, Reynolds and Richardson Farmer. They take a deep dive into the most top of mind legal issues facing municipalities across Alberta right now. Council's role in land use and development, like these are some really great sessions. I've taken those ones, like engagement and land use and stuff. They're really educational sessions. And the legal bits are, I think they would be.
Okay, the early bird pricing, we have to register before August 10th is
Yeah.
the criteria, so.
So I thought even if we just change the date, the 20th to the 23rd for now, and then we can, we can look at it. So I just come back at a, next committee hold or something to make that determination if any members want to go.
Councillor Florence, is that, this is your.
Oh, sorry.
Is it okay to change it from the 21st to the 20th?
Yeah,
Yeah? Okay.
sorry, I didn't know this were talking to me. I was
No, that's
I was
okay.
Reading your
Just-
stuff.
Just making sure that that's okay. Thank you for bringing that up. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you. So the next item that we have here is the food rescue and distribution event. We do have some information on our table about this. I haven't had a chance to look at this. If anyone else, have you guys looked at this yet?
Just since getting here.
You did, okay. Okay,
This is our Q&A.
I just need a moment. Just to take a look at this for a minute.
Did you need a chance to read that as well?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize it was sitting on the desk here.
Oh.
Looking back.
I was gonna steal your skill set to email these forward. Can't. It's frozen in place. I have all of these meeting expense claim forms. I just realized I opened them all back up again. I've got 3 of them that I can't email from this. I'm so happy. Yeah, just run circles, so. Oh, good.
Okay, so they're coming again on the 20th. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I apologize for this being just put on the table tonight, but, she did contact me 2 or 3 weeks ago and said she was sending this stuff to me. She just didn't get around to it until actually today. But as indicated there, she's looking at July 22nd as the date, Friday for 3 hours. Kind of talks about here, I think it looks like they're a little short of funding to do it this time as opposed to last time in terms of sponsorship. But, and obviously they're looking for permission similar to last time in Miners Park, et cetera. Possibly volunteers, she said would be good like last time too. And last time we did the motion there, and we did do a donation last time of $350. I'm not saying we have to, I'll just put a similar motion to that effect on the table as well, so.
Councillor Florence.
We actually didn't do a donation last time. I thought we decided not to.
We did not.
We did not. No, we did it because Headwater had done it.
Oh, yeah, they sponsored the whole thing, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. They, it's, I guess, just question, maybe, I don't know, but it's funny that it's not filtered through, like, Councillor Potter, have you heard anything about this as like kind of the,
They did not.
The point person?
Not until this moment, I have not seen this.
it's kind of interesting, and again, like, I mean, it's interesting, I would support it for sure. I'm a little bit worried about the perishables in July, and the evening hours. And then of course, my concern is the same as last time, that they're not asking people for personal information in exchange for food. And that we're giving people their dignity and maintaining that. I would definitely support giving them the space. I think that we should discuss the donation.
They have a refrigerated trailer, it says here, so.
What are you suggesting in terms of the donation? Are you suggesting that there should be one or there shouldn't be one? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I always think that a donation of space is quite a sizable donation anyway. And it's not just the space, it's that for that day, there's also not going to be able to be RVs probably going around for those few hours, right? So it's going to have to be somewhat blocking off that, which will require like, you know, maybe an hour or two of staff's time to drop off barriers and things like that. And so, I mean, I'm always reminded that giving a donation of space is a big donation. When it comes to it, $350 is quite nominal as well. So if council agrees to it, I mean, I wouldn't be against that either, but.
Does it say how many people were served?
Holders.
It doesn't even say like, yeah, for like our band has 15, like, what was it like, Councilor Coach, like you were there, unfortunately I couldn't be there, was it
Well,
quite?
I think Scott, look at the final numbers, it was quite a few, I think, how much was it?
I can't remember.
It was quite a few.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like,
Oh, here it is, right here. Oh no, this is Meals Rescue.
I want to say it was like about 1,000 people maybe.
Wow. Oh, it says Meals Rescue, oh, 1,007.
But now it's like the number of people.
I know that's number of people, yeah.
Well, it's because some people, you can take up to 2 houses, you can take yourself plus up to 2 households with you, so you can take 3. And it's on the honor system, so. And then, yeah, so, and then there could be two people, like somebody could be commuting and someone else will buy because they don't have access to a car, so. So the number of people is not reflective of, the number of meals.
And so the food that was distributed, was it a reasonable?
There's a list of it in here.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, I think it was well, received. There, yeah,
And I see that the fresh produce was taken over to the little local garden marketplace, right? And they had it on their shelves for people to take and help themselves.
I think they took some of it to Firewall as well.
Extra potatoes and stuff.
Oh,
You know, I think that this is something that like if people are really like, we're seeing great value of this in our community, which it sounds like we are. Like I think that this space and even a donation is like, it's nominal for the amount. I don't know, they're not asking us for volunteers and stuff this time again, I'm guessing, for their, it's like that's an,
She did say that they would like it.
but that wasn't a requirement this time. 'Cause last time it seemed like it was an actual requirement that they were looking for us for.
I would say they definitely appreciate their work, and I don't know if you do or not. So.
I would say that they probably are, we had more than enough volunteers last night.
Yeah.
We didn't have that many people show. I feel like it was a good turnout. We had people, you know, it was a social event, I guess, in the end, because there's so many volunteers.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And other thoughts on this?
I agree. I think it's worth the land donation and the cash donation as well.
Yeah, I think, we just talked about giving in perpetuity, believing that a donation, they provide service, these guys are also providing service. And I think it's worth supporting their cause, which helps our residents in need quite a bit, so. We don't have a food bank, so.
Yeah.
This is the best that we can do.
So they're looking at raising $4,000 to cover the total expenses. So when you're speaking, are you speaking about the $350 donation, or are you feeling that you're exploring the idea of a slightly higher one?
For me, I feel like slightly higher. I don't know, I feel like I'm picking a number out of a hat.
Yeah.
800, yeah, 1,000, I don't know, something like that.
I guess I would like to see further justification on how that money is being used, because $4,000, like, I mean, I helped with this event on the past, it didn't cost $4,000. So I would like to see justification for why you need $4,000, in order to do it. And then if so, then we're entering into an agreement where we want to, we want to see that, and it's a different kind of thing than just like, here's a donation, if it works, it works. But I don't think that we should go larger, I think that's a substantial donation.
Yeah, I guess the only reason why I was thinking is that is because right here, the storage of refrigerated items and transportation. So I'm thinking if they have a refrigerated truck, maybe that sort of increases the cost a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe we need to call the rental place, but it doesn't cost that much to rent a truck, and so, it's just interesting to me, so. Maybe they're bringing in some of their costs of leaving those, because they have reefers outside of their unit in Fort McLeod, so maybe they're kind of dividing up some of those warehouse costs and putting it on us, which, I mean, it's a different story, but again, like, I would love to see the further breakdown.
What is a reefer?
It's a semi, like a drive-in, like it's a big, like a
Okay,
semi truck.
okay.
But is it a refrigerated one?
A reefer? I don't know, is it, I don't think it's, unless it's a refrigerated reefer, it's just like a van, isn't it? Like a reefer is a reefer truck.
They do say they have a refrigerated, for clouds.
Yeah.
Refrigerated container, that's what
Oh, is it? Is it actual refrigerated?
refrigerated container is what we phrase.
Something like that. There you go. Learning something new today.
Yeah.
Well,
But my thought of what that was something very different.
there's
So
the
a little bit far ahead.
there's the slang definition.
Oh, man. Okay, so we have a couple of different discussions, regarding the amount. Would somebody like to make the motion? We've heard some different things.
Councillor Ackerman, what are your thoughts on this? You haven't spoken.
I think it's good that we donate the land. I do think, that's kind of helpful. I'm just worried that if we do make a sizable donation, if they're just gonna come to expect that every time they wanna come. And then like Councillor Florence had mentioned, you know, are they downloading some of their operating costs onto us as a municipality? Because it's one thing to support the event in the community, and I think it was well received as our last time, and it does bring a positive influence into the community, but it's just, is this something that we end up paying for to provide that, or is this something where we're working together with somebody to provide that service, right? Because they're kind of a standalone. So I would almost think that the 350 would be kind of my limit on this one. But just donating the land, I think that's huge, right? Because we are possibly looking at lost revenue for the campground if there's nobody in there. You know, it is kind of, it could limit use of the ball diamonds or something like that too, right? Because you're having all that extra traffic running up there.
I guess I was just thinking, at your last event, if 1,000 people were showing up, that's why I was thinking, you know, $1,000 or 800, so it wouldn't be unreasonable for that many folks, but I don't know if they are just coming from the whole area.
But then the question comes, how many times a year are you supporting this, right? Because if they start doing it 4 or 5 times a year, and they're expecting that $1,000 each time, that's $5,000, right? That's pretty much the equivalent to some of our memberships to some of the associations that where I personally feel we get a little more bang for the municipality that way. So we just gotta be mindful of the total amount, right? If it's $350 a couple times a year, I'm all right with that. Right, if it gets larger than that, where we're talking multiple thousands throughout the year, then that, you know, that eats away in other areas where we can be spending that money on the community.
Hearing what you guys are saying, we have, you know, some of the costs listed there, bagging supplies, for configuration, social media, feed advertising. The bagging that we sell, right, that's for the supplies. And then, so like 350 kind of covers those costs almost, I would say, it's close, right? It's more like 420, but it's close. But then like, I was like, well, how much is it to drive a semi-truck to and from Fort Cloud or a storage facility is, you know, at today's fuel prices, that's $160, right? So, ballpark figure. I don't know, fuel efficient the truck is electric. So anyway, but I hear what you guys are saying, right?
So it's only 350 this motion, or it sounds like 350 seems to be kind of okay with people, if that works. Or not, or anyone can make a motion that they'd like.
Well, sure, I'm good.
Oh, good, thank you.
You guys are just gonna sit quiet, so I'm gonna make the motion,
Yay!
and I'm gonna put the dollar value in there of $800.
800.
I am. Everybody's talking, but nobody's putting their cards on the table, so I'll start this one. My history is food security, so when I hear you talking about that money going into our community to other things, I'm thinking, but this is about food.
All right, discussion.
I know you're uncomfortable with it, but.
Well, I'm comfortable with the amount, not,
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to
Yeah.
support our
The
food
dollar.
insecurities in other ways in
Oh,
town.
of course, absolutely, and I'm sorry, when I say that, that's not to infer anything beyond just that dollar value sitting there.
So we take a friendly amendment to the amount, or should we, should we vote on it? No, I'm just kidding,
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess the other part is in the motion there, it talks about a Culver's volunteer contact as well. Do we want something in regards to that this time or not?
I could be that contribution.
You were the one who said it was so social last time, so I'm grateful that you stepped up again. And who was the other person that was it Devin?
yeah, Devin,
Devin Firth?
Devin Firth, and I think the LDS community was a big part of it too, right? Or not so much, but
Oh, not so much.
Yeah.
I think it was probably about half, prior to half.
Nice.
Well,
Do we have
honestly,
some-
I honestly turned to LDS as last word, and I just put out to
yeah.
the people first.
But do we have some local missionaries that are
They're
here?
out of Fort McLeod, yeah.
They're out from Cabo, let's give Michelle and get them here.
Yeah.
I love working those guys.
All right, any further discussion on the current motion? If not, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. All right, we have one more thing. The spray car hours, Council Pro, you have requested this be added.
Yeah, I was just considering, other parks in the region, like Richmond View's up until 8, Lethbridge is up until 8, Coldell's up until 8. And, you know, I was out there at 7 o'clock, it was 30 degrees, and if it would, you know, kids would have to play till 8. So I think for kids who wanna come, you know, have to go home and have dinner, and then after that, go play at the skate park, I think it would be wonderful to extend hours to 8, you know, like the region. So, is that something I need to make a motion for, I guess? Or I don't know.
Yes, just think back, there was probably most of the hours that we did, or there was discussion, I know that, to go from whatever time to, but I think it was a motion, so probably would work.
Okay, well, I move that we extend the spray park hours of operation until 8 PM.
All right. Discussion. Council Barnes.
Is there, with this, like, because I agree, I think it would be nice to get with the region and stuff like that. My kids were actually there the other day and the water was off and we weren't sure if the water was on or off and then I had to check the time. But anyway, I was just wondering, because I know staff has to check on it daily, is there any implication on staff for having it open later?
They do check it twice a day as it is now, and I think then our janitors look after the washrooms, sort of once it's done. So 7 to 8 probably isn't going to be drastic, I don't think. Off the top, so. But it's not supervised and whatever, someone just, I think they kind of lock it up at a certain time, somebody does, so.
I don't think they've been walking it up recently.
Maybe not, maybe not, so. But the washrooms, they kind of did after hours.
The washrooms,
But again, I think the janitors would be taking care of that, although. So.
All right, any further discussion or questions? If there's not, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. And someone like to make a motion to adjourn at 9:16. Council Barnes.
I move that we adjourn the meeting at 9:16 p.m.
Great. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right.
Well, I'm surprised that one went through. I didn't see that coming at all. Sometimes you just gotta be crazy.
Yeah.
I think that was horrible.
Wait,